Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Cursed Necklace. The attic smelled of mildew and history, a scent Holly Arnold had grown accustomed to during her archaeological research projects. But this wasn't work, it was a personal mission. The sprawling Victorian mansion on the Isle of Wight had been left to her by her late great-aunt Meredith Arnold, an eccentric woman known for her hoarding tendencies and peculiar habits. Holly hoped the cluttered attic might hold some clue to her family's secrets or perhaps a treasure worth keeping. The beam of her flashlight swept over dusty boxes, cracked trunks, and draped furniture. Her fingers grazed cobwebs as she lifted the lid of an old cedar chest. Inside, nestled among yellowed lace and faded photographs, was a velvet box. The hinges creaked as she opened it, revealing a necklace of eerie beauty, a delicate chain of black and silver holding a pendant with a crimson gemstone that seemed to pulse like a beating heart. The moment Holly touched the necklace, a sharp chill raced up her arm. She jerked her hand back but found herself inexplicably drawn to the piece. "Ah," Holly murmured. Her curiosity outweighed her unease. She slipped the necklace into her pocket, then descended the creaking ladder, the attic's gloom pressing on her back as if warning her not to leave with its secret. A strange history. That evening, Holly researched the necklace in the library room of the mansion. Books on local folklore and history surrounded her, and a worn journal of her great-aunt sat open on the desk. As she flipped through its brittle pages, one entry caught her eye, the Scarlet Tear, they called it. A jewel forged in malice, a curse for the foolish and the proud. Those who wear it are doomed to live their worst fears or die by them. The words chilled her. Superstitions like this were common in the Isle of Wight's folklore. Ghost stories and curses made for good tavern tales, but they rarely held any real power. When the necklace's chain tangled in her pocket, she decided to wear it, if only to prove there was nothing to fear. As the clasp clicked into place, the room seemed to darken. The gentle tick of the grandfather clock grew deafening. A shiver coursed through her, but she dismissed it as imagination. The first incident. The next morning, Holly awoke to a loud crash from the kitchen. Her pulse quickened as she rushed downstairs, only to find a shattered mug on the floor. Standing amidst the shards was her beloved cat, Luna, fur bristled and eyes wide with terror. "But what spooked you?" Holly asked, bending to pick her up. As she touched Luna, the cat hissed violently, a sound Holly had never heard from her gentle companion, and bolted from the room. The day passed uneventfully, though a nagging unease clung to Holly like a shadow. That night, as she prepared for bed, she glimpsed something in a mirror, a pale figure standing just behind her, eyes sunken and mouth stretched into a soundless scream. She whipped around, but the room was empty. Heart pounding, Holly yanked off the necklace and flung it onto her dresser. A history of death. Determined to rid herself of the unease, Holly took the necklace to an antique dealer in Newport the next day. The man, an elderly gentleman named Mr. Dyer, paled when he saw it. "Where did you find this?" he asked. "In my attic. It belonged to my great-aunt." Dyer shook his head. "That's the Scarlet Tear. It's infamous on the Isle. It first appeared in the 18th century, owned by a noblewoman who was found drowned in her own fountain. Since then, anyone who's possessed it has met a violent end: fires, accidents, suicides, the list goes on." Holly stared at the man, incredulous. You don't seriously believe that, do you?" "I've seen enough to know better than to dismiss it." He offered to take the necklace off her hands, but Holly hesitated. A strange part of her didn't want to let it go. The haunting escalates. Over the next week, Holly's world spiraled into chaos. Objects in the mansion moved on their own. She heard whispers in the dead of night, voices calling her name, luring her to the attic. And then came the dreams, vivid nightmares of drowning, burning, and falling from great heights. One night she woke to find herself standing on the mansion's balcony, the cold wind whipping through her nightgown. The railing beneath her hands felt wrong, as if it wanted to crumble and take her with it. "I have to end this." Confronting the curse, Holly decided to destroy the necklace. She drove to the chalk cliffs overlooking the Needles, a remote and windswept spot she hoped would be far enough to contain whatever evil lingered in the gem. As she approached the edge, the wind picked up, howling like a chorus of anguished voices. Her steps slowed as a presence seemed to surround her, unseen but palpable. "Oh, don't do it." She froze, clutching the necklace. Her mind flooded with images, her great-aunt, Meredith, staring blankly at the attic's ceiling, the noblewoman in her fountain, others, countless others, all bearing the same crimson stone. "No more," Holly said. She hurled the necklace into the void. The gems seemed to pulse one last time before vanishing into the misty depths. The aftermath. The whispers ceased. The house grew still, almost eerily so. Holly returned to the mansion, exhausted but relieved. The nightmares stopped, and Luna cautiously returned to her side. Yet, in the silence of the attic, the velvet box remained, and deep beneath the waves, the scarlet tear awaited its next owner. A new beginning. Holly spent the next few weeks reclaiming a sense of normalcy. The mansion, once oppressive, now felt almost welcoming. The sunlight streaming through the tall windows seemed brighter, and the creaks of the old house no longer carried sinister undertones. She decided to transform her great-aunt's estate into something meaningful. The mansion, with its sprawling grounds, could serve as a bed and breakfast for tourists drawn to the Isle of Wight's rich history. It felt like a fitting way to honor her family's legacy while putting her own mark on it. The attic, however, remained sealed. Holly couldn't bring herself to return to the place where her ordeal had begun. The unseen threads. One stormy evening, as rain lashed against the mansion's windows, Holly sat by the fire, sifting through more of Meredith's journals. They were a window into the mind of a woman who had lived a life both extraordinary and tragic. One entry caught Holly's attention. "I thought I could resist its pull, but the necklace whispers to me in the dark. It wants me to take it back, to wear it again. I've hidden it away, but I fear it will find a way out. It always does." Holly shivered, her eyes flicking toward the ceiling, where the attic loomed like a ghostly presence. She forced herself to focus on the journal. Meredith had spent decades researching the scarlet tear, tracing its origins to a jeweler who had cursed it after being betrayed by a noble patron. The curse was an act of vengeance, but its power had grown unchecked, feeding on the fears and pain of its victims. The entries became more erratic, detailing Meredith's own brushes with the curse. Holly wondered how her great-aunt had managed to resist wearing the necklace for so long. The cycle resumes. A week later, a young couple arrived at the mansion, eager to learn about its history. Holly led them on a tour, recounting tales of the Isle of Wight's haunted past while carefully avoiding any mention of the scarlet tear. As they explored the house, the woman, Sarah, grew fascinated with the attic. "Do you ever go up there?" Not anymore." But Sarah's curiosity was piqued. That evening, while Holly prepared dinner, she heard footsteps on the attic ladder. Panic gripped her as she rushed upstairs, only to find Sarah standing before the cedar chest, the velvet box open in her hands. "Oh, I found this," Sarah said. "It's beautiful. Is it yours?" Holly shouted, her voice trembling. Sarah flinched but hesitated. It's just a necklace." Holly snapped, grabbing the box and shoving it shut. The couple left the next morning, unnerved by Holly's intensity. The final warning. That night, Holly dreamed of her great-aunt. Meredith stood in the attic, her face pale and lined with sorrow. "You've only delayed it. The tear can't be destroyed." Holly woke in a cold sweat, the echo of her great-aunt's words ringing in her ears. Determined to prevent the cycle from repeating, Holly contacted a historian and folklorist on the mainland. She shared the story of the scarlet tear and asked for their help in sealing it away. Together, they devised a plan. The necklace would be locked in an iron box engraved with protective symbols and buried deep beneath the island's soil. Burying the past. Under the cover of night, Holly and the folklorist carried the iron box to an ancient grove rumored to hold protective energy. They dug a deep hole, placed the box inside, and covered it with heavy stones. As they worked, the wind howled through the trees, and Holly thought she heard faint whispers. But when the last stone was placed, the air grew still. "It's done," the folklorist said. Holly nodded, though a lingering doubt gnawed at her. She knew the scarlet tear's hunger couldn't be sated by mere burial. But for now, the cursed necklace was out of reach, and the mansion was free of its dark presence. A warning to the future. Holly added one final entry to her great-aunt's journals. To whoever finds this, beware the scarlet tear. If it calls to you, resist. Its beauty is a trap, and its promises are lies. Leave it buried, and let the dead rest. Satisfied, she locked the journal in a hidden drawer in the library and closed the chapter on the curse. But deep beneath the soil of the Isle of Wight, the scarlet tear waited, patient as the tide. And somewhere, someone would hear its call. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.